Hey, what's up everyone? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the Robot Damacy or Robot Spirits Tall Geese. This is the first Tall Geese, which is kind of cool. It's definitely the most simplistic looking, but it still has kind of a nice look to it. It's not my favorite design ever, and especially it's not my favorite of the Tall Geese figures, but it's still pretty darn cool looking. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at him. This is the figure as he comes out of the package. He's got his shield connected up here, nothing here, and nothing on his back. So we're gonna do a quick rundown of the paint applications and articulation before we move on to the other parts, and then I'll add them all on and you'll see the whole thing. So he stands almost 6 inches tall to the top of this piece right here, which is done really well. It's two different shades of red, and then we've got that gunmetal, and it's a really nice clean sculpt. And that takes us down to the head, which is a rather simple, simplistic design, but I think it's okay. It kind of goes back to the Greek or Roman helmets that they wore in ancient times, so that's pretty cool. And we have some articulation here, of course. We have a ball peg that goes up into the head, and then this neck piece is actually connected to the neck itself, and that's got another ball peg underneath, but that does limit the articulation a bit. You really only get the articulation that is for the head. Any of the neck articulation is that right there, that little bit up and down. So that's a little bit restrictive, but the head itself does have a pretty good range, so I am alright with that. For the shoulders, we have this joint that has the butterfly joint built into it. That's that great part in the torso. And then we have, of course, just the ball peg for the shoulder itself. So that gives us a little play up and down. Then we, of course, have the hinge here. Not as much range of motion as I would necessarily like, but it's not horrible. And the way it works is it kind of just slides around in that circle socket type thing. So it's a little unique. It looks pretty good. That's kind of necessary for this ball sculpt that they have, that they needed to work with, so I'm okay with that. Then we do have this shoulder pad up here that it does play around a little bit, but not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of range of motion going up and down. We do have the rotation here, but it's not really going to be that useful, just in my opinion. It is there though. We have a bicep swivel at the white part. Then we have the single jointed elbow, which this is an older figure compared to some of the other ones we've reviewed, so that's okay, but it does have pretty good range of motion, and it doesn't totally destroy the look of the arm, so I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite design again, but it's alright. And then for the wrists, we have a double ball peg. Pretty simple. You don't ever get a whole lot of range of motion out of the wrists on a Robot Damacy, but it's not bad. For the upper torso, we do have a little bit of an ab crunch. Hopefully you can see that. It just kind of tilts. Well, here you can see it better from the back, I suppose. It just kind of rocks forward like it's hinged at the front. So you don't notice it too much at the front, actually, but it is there. No side to side. That comes down here from the lower torso. That's just basically a ball peg that goes all over the place. And you can swivel there and at that other lower part. So it's going to give you a nice fluid look. It hides the articulation very nicely. For the skirt armor, all we have, if I can get in there, is a little piece here on either side. So that's it's the standard ball peg, but it's pretty much just a swivel. And then we have these hip pieces that just kind of hinge up and down from the back. So it's definitely a little more restricting than I'd necessarily choose to do, but you have to do what you have to do, I guess. Now for the hips, these pieces are sculpted onto the thigh, so they do get in the way quite a bit. We do just have a standard ball peg for either hip, so we can bring the leg forward, but even with the articulated thigh armor, the front works fine, but the sides, very, very limited. So this little hinge here doesn't help all that much. We do have a thigh swivel, but it is very limited also, unless you bring the leg out to the side, and then it's still kind of clunky. So the hips are not the best by any means of the Robot Damacy figures. The knees, we have a double jointed knee, and you can bring the leg pretty far back. Let's move the leg forward more so we can do that. So you can bring the leg pretty far back, and the cool thing about this is the kneecap stays on the knee. So it's just kind of a nice little effect so that when you bend the knee, it's not completely grayed out. And it looks kind of good. It's one of the better pieces of articulation, I think, on the lower body. For the ankles, I haven't looked at these too close yet. Let's see what we have here. We have a ball peg, it looks like. So the whole foot connects to a ball peg in the ankle going that way. So that gives you your rotation and everything else. And we have, looks like a hinge for the toe. So the hinge goes this way. And then, is there an ankle rocker separate? There is an ankle rocker hidden behind that round part. Hidden behind there, there's an ankle rocker that lets the foot go side to side. Doesn't work all that well, but it is there. And then you can actually bring the toe up a little bit, but just a tiny little bit. So it's again pretty limited. Even for Robot Damashi ankles, his ankles are pretty limited. Okay, so the articulation, it's there. It's not the best, but it'll probably get the job done. As far as the paints go on the rest of the body, it looks pretty good. The yellows could definitely be better there on the chest. The golds look okay. I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but there is actually a separate color for the whites. Some of the whites are kind of a more standard white molded plastic, and then some have a pearlescent look to them. So the shoulder pads, what else has it? The knee pads and parts of the ankles have that pearlescent color to it, and the others are just plain old white. So I mean, it's not a bad looking figure, and definitely once you get it posed, it'll look just fine. So let's get to the accessories. First of all, we have the shield here, which can come out, and he can hold it by this handle right here, or you can have him hold it by the handle while it's connected, so that's fine. And inside the shield, or inside the back of the shield, we have a holder for his two beam sword handles. So that is pretty spiffy. I like that. So you can just pull those out, and of course, in order to use those, you need to have, it's a little tricky by the way to get those back in place, but you can do it with a little bit of patience. So you have the two beam sword handles, which means you need to have beam sword blades. And he's got these. They're not quite as red as they could be. They're kind of pinkish, and maybe that's accurate. I really don't remember what color they were, but they're nicely done. They don't look like they're faded or anything. They just aren't as vibrant as some of the things we've seen. So that's nice there. And then let's just put the parts on his body that we need to put on so that he looks good. So we have these thruster things that go on his back, and we have two little hinges back here. So those hinge up and down, and that's a ball peg that snaps in to there. Use a little bit of caution when you're putting these on. They take quite a bit of force, so just be careful and don't mangle it as you're putting it together. These really add a whole lot to the figure in terms of composition and just awesomeness. So that's looks better already, I think, just having a little bit more color on the figure, a little bit more mass. And then what we can do is we can also hinge these out to give it a little more of a cool look. And then we can also open these up, and this gives even more, and they kind of snap into place. You can overdo that and it'll pop out, and you'll have to kind of figure out how to get it back together. But we have these thrusters here, and each one has a thruster inside, so that adds a whole lot of mass to him. However you want to display him, that works. You can bring them up or down or move them around a little bit. They are connected to the shoulders though, so as you move the arms, that's going to change how the thrusters are aligned. That hinge does help, but it is something to be aware of. Then we also have an alternate head, which is, I think it's for like when he's being repaired, but I don't remember for sure. So that head just pops off and this head goes back in its place. So it's got that little gold unibeam type thing going on, and there's the articulation right there for the head and the neck. So that just replaces that. And then we have some guns, because you're probably wondering what goes on this arm, or on this shoulder pad, this piece here, and that is this. This is a blaster for him. So what do we have to do here? We have a handle that folds down that he can put in his hand. This extends, and this pegs in to the shoulder thing. So he can have that connected up here. This, of course, adds a lot more to the figure. Always good to have big guns for a Gundam. So we have a shield and a big gun here, and he does come with another gun. Anytime you can have a gun, why not? It's pretty bland though. It's pretty much just this molded gray plastic with a little bit of a blue thing on there, so not a whole lot going on for that. And then of course we have some alternate hands, because what would a Robot Damashi figure be without alternate hands? So as you can see on the figure here, we have just the two fist hands. Nothing too fancy. We have one thumbs up hand for holding the beam sword. Then we have two of the jazz hands for the style pose. Of course, we need those. And then lastly, we have two gripping hands, which are good for beam swords or guns. So there you have it, guys. That's the Tallgeese 1. I will be reviewing number 2 and number 3, so make sure you check those out and stay tuned for that stuff and for other figure reviews and custom figures. And in the meantime, keep collecting.